Shadows Beyond the Arena Part 1. The transport ship docked at Interstellar Academy with a soft hiss of pressure locks. Myra stood at the window, watching the massive station grow larger against the purple clouds of the gas giant below. She was 17 years old, small for her age, with dark skin and black hair pulled back in a simple braid. Her eyes were the color of coffee, and they held a strange calmness that made some people uncomfortable. She carried only one bag. Everything she owned fit inside it. The academy was home to students from 30 different species. It floated in space like a great metal flower, with different sections spinning at different speeds to create the right gravity for each species. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only made contact with alien life 40 years ago. To most species, they were children playing at being adults. Myra walked through the arrivals area and saw the stairs. A group of students stood near the entrance. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with 4 arms and scales that shifted between green and gold. Their eyes followed her like predators watching prey. She kept walking. She had seen worse things than unfriendly stares. The housing officer was a round alien covered in soft blue fur. He seemed nervous as he checked her file on his data pad. His small eyes kept looking up at her, then back down at the screen. "Your file is unusual," he said. "Parts of it are blocked. I cannot see where you studied before." "Does it matter?" Myra asked. Her voice was quiet and polite. "I suppose not." He handed her a room key. "You will be in the human section, Block 7. There are 11 other humans at the academy. I suggest you find them quickly. Some students here are not welcoming to your kind." Myra took the key. "Thank you for the warning." Block 7 was small but clean. The rooms were built for human comfort with Earth-normal gravity and familiar lighting. Myra found her room and set down her bag. The walls were bare metal. The bed was narrow. The windows showed only stars. It felt like every other temporary home she had ever known. A knock came at her door. She opened it to find a boy about her age, with pale skin and messy brown hair. He had a friendly face and nervous hands that kept moving. "Hey, I'm Devin. I live 2 doors down, saw you arrive and wanted to say welcome." He smiled too wide. "It's nice to have another human here. Safety in numbers, right?" "Right," Myra said. She did not smile back. Devin did not seem bothered by her coldness. He leaned against her doorframe and lowered his voice. "Look, I should warn you about some things. There's a group of students led by this guy named. His father is some big trade baron, lots of money and power, and his friends have been making life hard for humans since forever." "What do they do?" "Small stuff mostly, stuff that's hard to prove. They bump into you in hallways, they spill things on your work, they spread rumors that humans smell bad or carry diseases." Devin's smile faded. 3 human students left last semester. One of them tried to hurt herself. The administration did nothing. His father gives too much money to the school. Myra listened carefully. Her face showed nothing. "I understand." "Just keep your head down," Devin said. "Don't give them a reason to notice you. That's how we survive here." After he left, Myra sat on her bed for a long time. She looked at her hands. They were small hands, with old scars on the knuckles that most people never noticed. She wore long sleeves even though the room was warm. There were more scars under the fabric. She opened her bag and took out a small metal case. Inside was a data chip. She plugged it into her personal terminal and watched the files load. Names, faces, records, every incident of harassment against human students for the past 2 years, every complaint that was ignored, every administrator who looked the other way. And at the center of it all, one name. Myra closed the files and looked out at the stars. She thought about the children she had helped escape from the burning colony when she was 12. She thought about the woman in military black who had found her in the refugee camp, who had seen something in her eyes and said words that changed her life. "You have a gift for shadows, Myra. You notice things others miss. You stay calm when others panic. We can teach you to use these gifts. We can make you into something that protects the weak. 5 years of training. 5 years of learning to fight, to watch, to wait. 5 years of becoming a weapon that looked like a quiet girl. Now she was here, in a school where human children were being hurt, and no one was helping them. The next morning, Myra walked to her first class. The hallways were crowded with aliens of every shape and size. She kept her eyes forward and her steps steady. She felt him before she saw him, a presence behind her, large and cold. "New human," said a deep voice. She turned, stood there with 3 friends behind him. He was taller than the other, with darker scales and golden eyes that held nothing but contempt. He looked at her the way someone might look at an insect. "Small," he said, "even for a human. Do they not feed you properly on your dirty little planet?" His friends laughed. Other students in the hallway pretended not to see. Myra looked up at him. She had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. She said nothing. "No words," leaned closer. "Good. Learn to stay silent, little human. Learn to stay out of my way. Your kind does not belong here." He walked past her, his shoulder hitting hers hard enough to send her stumbling. His friends followed, still laughing. Myra caught her balance. She watched them go. Her face was calm, but something cold moved behind her eyes. In a secure server far from the academy, Myra's file sat in a classified database. Most of it was redacted, blocked from view, but at the bottom was a single code that any military officer would recognize. Project Umbra, active asset. The humans had not sent a student to academy. They had sent a response, and had just made himself a target. Shadows Beyond the Arena Part 2. 3 weeks passed at academy. Myra went to classes, ate in the cafeteria, and studied in the library like any normal student. She was quiet and polite. She earned good grades. She made no trouble. And every day found new ways to torment her. It started small. Her data pad would be knocked from her hands in crowded hallways. Her food tray would be accidentally bumped, spilling hot soup on her uniform. Whispers followed her everywhere. Humans smell like rotting meat. Humans carry brain parasites. Humans are too stupid to learn real science. Myra never reacted. She picked up her data pad. She cleaned her uniform. She ignored the whispers. Her face remained calm and empty like still water. This seemed to make angry. He wanted fear. He wanted tears. He wanted her to break the way other humans had broken. Her silence was an insult to him. One day in chemistry class, walked past her workstation and spilled a container of cleaning acid on her project. The acid ate through her work in seconds, destroying 3 days of careful effort. The teacher, a nervous creature, pretended not to see. Myra looked at the ruined project. She looked at who stood there with a cruel smile. "Clumsy human," he said, "cannot even keep your work safe." She said nothing. She began cleaning up the mess with steady hands. After class, Devon found her in the hallway. His face was red with anger. "You have to report him. This is getting worse every day. Someone has to stop him." "Report him to who?" Myra asked calmly. "The teachers who look away, the administrators who take money from his father." "Then fight back. Show him you're not afraid." Myra looked at Devon with those dark, patient eyes. "Not yet." "What does that mean? What are you waiting for?" She did not answer. That night, after everyone was asleep, Myra left her room. She moved through the station like smoke, silent and unseen. She found an empty training room in the lower levels where no one ever went. For 3 hours she practiced. Her movements were not like normal fighting. They were precise and surgical. She practiced strikes that targeted nerve clusters. She practiced joint locks that could disable four-armed opponents. She studied anatomy on her data pad, learning every weakness, every pressure point, every vulnerability. She was not hiding, she was preparing. At 2 in the morning, She sat alone in the dark and let the memories come. She was 12 years old again, on a colony world at the edge of human space. The attack came without warning. Alien raiders burned everything. Myra's parents died in the first wave. She survived because she was small and quiet, because she could hide in shadows where others could not. She found other children in the wreckage, 7 of them crying and lost. Something hard formed in her heart that day, something that said, "These children will not die. I will not let them die." She led them through the burning streets. She kept them quiet when raiders passed nearby. She found water and food in destroyed buildings. For 4 days, she kept them alive until rescue ships arrived. The woman in military black found her at the refugee camp. Commander Sarah Wells. Her eyes were kind but sharp, seeing everything. "You saved 7 lives," Commander Wells said. "Most adults could not have done what you did. Where did you learn to survive like that?" Myra shrugged. "I did not learn, I just did what was needed." "That is exactly what I am looking for." The commander sat beside her. "There are people who hurt the innocent because they think no one will stop them. What if you could become someone who stops them? What if you could use your gifts to protect others?" "What gifts?" "You stay calm when everything burns. You see what others miss. You do what must be done without freezing or panicking." Commander Wells leaned closer. "We call ourselves the Shadows. We go where others cannot. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. Would you like to learn?" Myra thought about the children she had saved. She thought about her parents, who could not be saved. She thought about all the people who hurt the weak because they believed there would be no consequences. "Yes," she said, "teach me." 5 years of training followed. 5 years of becoming something more than human. She learned to fight, to spy, to infiltrate. She learned patience and planning. She learned to wait for the perfect moment. Now she was here, at Academy, watching hurt innocent humans while the galaxy looked away. The school announced the Crucible Games 1 week later. It was an old tradition, a combat tournament meant to build respect between species. Students could volunteer to fight in controlled matches with padded weapons and strict rules. Many students entered immediately. Fighting was part of their culture. Devon found Myra in the cafeteria. "Please tell me you are not thinking about entering the Crucible Games." "I am thinking about it." "Are you crazy? Enters every year. He has won 3 times. He will kill you." Myra took a bite of her food. Perhaps. The next day found her in a quiet corridor. This time he was alone. His forearms flexed with barely contained violence. His eyes burned with frustration. "I am tired of your silence, little human," he growled. "I am tired of your empty face. You think you are strong. You think you are brave." He moved closer. "You are nothing. Your species is nothing. You should have stayed on your dirty little planet." He grabbed her shoulder with one clawed hand. He squeezed hard. His claws cut through her uniform and into her skin. Blood began to soak the fabric. Myra felt the pain. She did not react to it. Instead, she looked down at the blood on her shoulder. Then she looked up at. And for the first time since arriving at the academy, she smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment. "Thank you," she said softly. "Blink to what?" "You drew blood. That changes things. Now I have a reason that everyone will understand." She stepped back and her smile grew wider. "I will see you at the Crucible Games. I hope you are ready." She walked away, leaving him standing there with her blood on his claws. For the first time, felt something he did not recognize. It felt almost like fear. Shadows Beyond the Arena Part 3. The Crucible Games took place in the great arena at the center of Academy. Thousands of students gathered in the stands, their voices creating a roar that shook the metal walls. Lights blazed down on the fighting platform, a circle of reinforced material designed to handle combat between any species. Myra stood in the human section of the waiting area, stretching her muscles. She wore simple fighting clothes, tight and dark. The wound on her shoulder had been treated but still ached. She did not mind the pain. Pain helped her focus. Devon rushed in, his face pale and sweating. He grabbed her arm with shaking hands. "I found something," he whispered. "I have a friend who works in administration. He accessed part of your file, the parts that were not redacted." His voice dropped even lower. "You are not really a student, are you?" Myra looked at him calmly. "I am a student. I attend classes. I do homework." "You know what I mean." Devon's eyes were wide. "The file said something about Project Umbra. It said you were placed here after 3 human students tried to hurt themselves. It said you are a field operative." He swallowed hard. "What does that mean?" Myra was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "It means someone finally listened." "What?" "Families complained. They sent messages to Earth begging for help. Their children were being destroyed and no one cared, so Earth sent someone who would make people care." She looked toward the arena. "They sent me." Devon stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You let him hurt you. You let him torment you for weeks. It was all planned." "I needed evidence. I needed witnesses. I needed him to show his true nature in front of everyone." Her voice was flat, almost tired. "Now he has. Now I can respond." The announcer's voice echoed through the arena. Third-round matches were beginning. The crowd roared. Myra walked toward the fighting platform. Devon followed, still trying to understand. But why the Crucible Games? Why not just report everything? Reports can be ignored. Money can make problems disappear, but everyone watches the Crucible Games. She stepped onto the platform and looked up at the thousands of faces in the stands. "After today, everyone will know what happens when you hurt humans. Everyone will remember." Across the platform, emerged from the section. He was massive in his fighting gear, all 4 arms wrapped in protective tape. His scales gleamed under the lights, and his golden eyes blazed with arrogance. The crowd began whispering. The odds boards flickered with numbers. A human female against a warrior. No one even bothered to calculate her chances. It was not a fight. It was a sacrifice. The announcer called their names, raised all 4 arms, soaking in the cheers from the section. Myra stood still, hands at her sides, face empty. The signal to begin sounded. Charged immediately. He was fast for his size, crossing the platform in 3 great strides. His upper arms swung toward her head while his lower arms reached to grab her body. It was a perfect attack, designed to overwhelm smaller opponents. Myra was not there. She moved sideways at the last moment, faster than any human should move. Her hand shot out and struck a point on his upper left arm, right where the nerve cluster sat beneath the scales. His arm went dead. It dropped to his side, useless. The crowd went silent. He spun, confused and angry. He swung again with his remaining 3 arms. Myra ducked under the strike and drove her palm into a spot on his lower back. His lower right arm stopped working. 2 arms down. The fight was 30 seconds old. His confusion turned to fear. He backed away, trying to understand what was happening. This small human girl was taking him apart piece by piece. "What are you?" he hissed. Myra did not answer. She attacked. Her movements were nothing like the wild swings of an amateur. She flowed like water, like shadow, striking only at precise targets. She knew anatomy better than most doctors. Every blow landed exactly where it would cause the most damage without killing. She was not fighting him. She was teaching him. She was teaching him what it felt like to be helpless, to be powerless, to have someone stronger use that strength to cause pain. Fell to one knee, 3 arms hanging useless, his remaining arm trembling as he tried to defend himself. His golden eyes were wide with something he had never felt before. Pure terror. Myra stood over him. She was not even breathing hard. The crowd was completely silent, thousands of beings staring in disbelief at what they were witnessing. She leaned down and spoke softly, so only he could hear. Every human you hurt here has a family. Some of those families begged Earth to do something. Letters, messages, desperate pleas for help. Her voice was cold and quiet. Earth listened. They sent me. Tried to speak. Only a weak sound came out. This was your warning, Myra continued. Touch another human and I will not be so gentle. I will not disable your arms. I will break them. Do you understand? He nodded weakly. Good. She stood up and stepped back. The signal sounded. The match was over. Myra had won in 2 minutes and 47 seconds. The crowd remained silent as she walked off the platform. Then, slowly, the human students began to cheer. It started small, just a few voices, then grew louder. Other species joined in, beings who had been quietly disgusted by bullying for years. In the observation deck high above the arena, several academy administrators watched with worried faces. One of them, an elderly with faded scales, spoke quietly. The humans sent a shadow operative to a school. They sent a trained weapon to protect their children. Another administrator, a being made of floating crystals, responded. What message are they sending? The elderly looked down at the small human girl, walking through the cheering crowd. The message is clear, he said. They will protect their own, no matter the cost, no matter how small the battlefield. He paused. We have badly underestimated this species. In the medical bay, lay on a bed while doctors worked to restore feeling to his arms. He stared at the ceiling with empty eyes. His father was coming. There would be consequences. But for the first time in his life, was not thinking about power or status or revenge. He was thinking about the quiet girl with the dark eyes who had shown him exactly how weak he truly was. And he was afraid. Shadows Beyond the Arena Part 4. Trade Baron arrived at Academy 3 days after the Crucible Games. His ship was massive, covered in gold markings that showed his wealth and status. He walked through the station like he owned it, because in many ways he did. His money had built half the Academy's research labs. His influence had protected his son for years. He was tall even with scales so dark they were almost black. His forearms were thick with muscle, and his eyes burned with cold rage. He demanded an emergency tribunal. He wanted the human girl expelled, arrested, and handed over to authorities for proper punishment. He wanted her to suffer for embarrassing his family. The Academy had no choice but to agree to the tribunal. But they were not prepared for who else arrived. Ambassador Helen represented humanity in this sector of space. She was a woman of 60 years, with gray hair and dark skin and eyes that had seen wars and peace treaties and everything between. She walked into the tribunal chamber like she belonged there, flanked by 2 aides in formal Earth attire. The chamber was circular, with seats rising in layers around a central platform. Representatives from every major species at the Academy sat watching. Baron stood on one side, his legal team behind him. Ambassador stood on the other side alone. Myra sat in a small chair near the center, waiting to testify. The head administrator, an ancient being made of living stone, called the tribunal to order. We are here to discuss the incident at the Crucible Games, the stone being rumbled. Baron, you may speak first. The Baron's voice filled the chamber like thunder. My son was brutalized by this human creature. She used forbidden techniques. She targeted his nerves deliberately to cause maximum pain. This was not a sporting match. This was assault. Ambassador raised her hand. May I ask a question? The stone administrator nodded. Baron, are you aware that your son drew blood from his 2 days before the match? That he grabbed her with his claws and cut through her skin? The Baron waved dismissively. A minor incident. Students have conflicts. I see. And are you aware that your son has been involved in 73 documented incidents of harassment against human students over the past 2 years? That 3 human students required psychological treatment after his attention. That one attempted to end her own life. The chamber went very quiet. The Baron's eyes narrowed. Those accusations were never proven. The administration investigated and found no wrongdoing. Yes, about that. Ambassador smiled, but there was no warmth in it. She activated a holographic display. Documents and videos filled the air. We have obtained evidence that Academy administrators deliberately ignored complaints against your son. In some cases, they actively deleted records. In one case, a teacher was paid to change her testimony. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The administrators shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This evidence was gathered over several months by an operative placed at this academy for exactly this purpose. The ambassador looked at Myra. Ms. was not sent here to attack your son, Baron. She was sent here to protect human students who had been abandoned by the system that should have protected them. Baron's face twisted with rage. You admit it. You planted a spy in this academy, a trained killer. A trained protector, Ambassador corrected calmly. After our complaints were ignored, after our children kept suffering, we had no choice. We sent someone who could gather evidence and, if necessary, demonstrate that humans are not easy targets. The Baron stepped forward, all 4 arms clenched. Do you know who I am? Do you know what I can do to your precious Earth? One word from me and a dozen trade agreements disappear. Your people will starve. Ambassador did not move. She did not flinch. Instead, she laughed softly. Baron, you mistake us for a species that can be threatened into submission. Her voice was quiet but carried to every corner of the chamber. Humanity spent 10,000 years at war with itself. We have survived ice ages, plagues, famines, and conflicts that killed billions. We are still here. She stepped closer to him, a small old woman facing a towering alien warrior. Your son learned what happens when you mistake human patience for human weakness. I suggest you learn the same lesson. We do not break easily. We do not scare easily. And we protect our own with everything we have. The Baron stared at her. For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, the stone administrator called for order. The tribunal will review all evidence and render a judgment. Ms., please come forward to testify. Myra stood and walked to the center of the chamber. She looked small and young among all these powerful beings, but her voice was steady. I did what I was trained to do, she said. I watched. I gathered evidence. I waited for the right moment to act. Everything I did at the Crucible Games was legal under the tournament rules. I hurt, but I did not damage him permanently. He will recover completely. She paused and something in her voice changed, became more human, more tired. I did not want this assignment. I am tired of being a weapon. But when I learned what was happening here, when I read the letters from families begging for help, she shook her head. Someone had to do something. Someone had to show these bullies that actions have consequences. If that someone had to be me, then so be it. The tribunal lasted 4 more hours. Evidence was presented. Witnesses. The truth came out slowly, painfully, completely. At the end, the stone administrator delivered the verdict. Was expelled from Academy permanently. 3 administrators were removed from their positions and faced investigation. Baron was warned that any retaliation against human students would be considered an act of species-based discrimination under galactic law. And Myra was reassigned. Her mission was complete. There was no reason for her to stay. That evening, she packed her bag in her small room. Devon stood in the doorway, watching. Where will you go? He asked. Myra looked out the window at the stars. Wherever they need me. There is always somewhere, always someone who needs protection. Will you ever get to just live, be normal? She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I do not know what normal feels like anymore." For the first time, Devon saw something crack in her armor. Her hands trembled slightly as she closed her bag. She was strong, yes, capable and dangerous and brave. But she was also just a 17-year-old girl who had been carrying too much weight for too long. He did not know what to say, so he said the only thing he could. "Thank you for everything." Myra nodded once, then she picked up her bag and walked out the door. Tomorrow she would be gone, but the change she had started would remain long after she left. Shadows Beyond the Arena Part 5. 6 months passed since Myra left Academy. Devon stood in the cafeteria, looking around at a school he barely recognized. Human students sat with students, sharing food and laughing at jokes. A group of young aliens from 5 different species worked together on a science project in the corner. The fear that had once filled these halls was gone, replaced by something that felt almost like friendship. The change had started small. After Myra's fight in the tribunal, the younger students began questioning what they had been taught. They had watched one of their strongest warriors fall to a small human girl, and it had shaken something loose in their minds. Strength was not about size. Power was not about fear. The old ways of bullying and domination suddenly seemed foolish and weak. New administrators had been appointed, ones who actually cared about protecting all students. A human counselor had arrived to help those who had been hurt. Support groups formed. Conversations happened. Slowly, painfully, things got better. Devon had helped where he could. He organized study groups that mixed species together. He reported incidents when he saw them. He tried to be the kind of person Myra would respect. He thought about her often. Where was she now? What mission was she on? Was she safe? Then one day, a message arrived on his personal terminal. No sender name, just coordinates and a time. He almost did not go. It could be a trap. It could be anything. But something told him it was her. The coordinates led to a neutral trading station 3 days away by transport. Devon used his savings to buy a ticket. He told no one where he was going. The station was crowded and noisy, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Devon wandered through the markets, looking for any sign of her. He was about to give up when he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned and saw Myra. She looked different. Her hair was longer, falling loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back tightly. Her clothes were civilian, soft colors instead of dark, practical fabrics. But the biggest change was in her eyes. They were still dark and watchful, but something in them had softened. She almost looked like a normal teenager. "You came," she said. "Of course I came." He hugged her without thinking, then stepped back, embarrassed. "Sorry, I thought I might never see you again." She smiled, and it was a real smile this time, not the cold thing he had seen in the corridor before the Crucible Games. "I wanted to tell you something, and I did not want to say it in a message." They found a quiet cafe overlooking the stars. She ordered tea. He ordered something blue and fizzy that he could not pronounce. "They gave me a choice," Myra said. "After my last mission, they said I could retire from the shadows, leave it all behind, try to have a normal life." Devon's heart jumped, and I spent weeks thinking about it. The shadows are all I have known since I was 12. Being a weapon, being a protector. That is my identity. Who am I without it? She looked out at the stars, and her face was complicated, full of emotions he could not name. "Then I remembered something you said. That day before I left, you thanked me. Do you remember?" "I remember." No one had ever thanked me before, not like that. Not for being me, not for the mission, but just for everything. She took a breath. I started thinking about what I actually accomplished at the academy. Yes, I beat. Yes, I exposed the corruption. But what mattered most was what happened after. The changes, the friendships, the healing. Devon nodded slowly. "The younger students talk about you like you are a legend, but not because you won a fight, because you stood up when no one else would. They want to be like that. strong enough to protect others instead of hurting them. Myra's eyes glistened with something that might have been tears. She blinked them away. I realized I do not want to be a weapon anymore. I want to be something else, something better. She straightened in her chair. I enrolled in the Interstellar Diplomatic Corps. I start training next month. Diplomacy, Devon laughed in surprise. You. Why not? Maybe I can protect people with words instead of fists. Maybe I can stop fights before they start instead of finishing them after. She shrugged. It will not be easy. I have spent my whole life learning to hurt people. Learning to talk to them instead will be a challenge. If anyone can do it, you can. They talked for hours about the changes at the academy, about Devon's plans to study psychology, about the future and what it might hold. When it was time to go, Myra hugged him. Her arms were strong, but her touch was gentle. Take care of the others, she said. The human students, the young who are trying to be better, they need people like you. I will, I promise. She walked away into the crowd. He watched until she disappeared. Far across the galaxy, at a different academy on a different station, a young student named sat alone in the cafeteria. His scales were pale and his body was small for his species. The older students called him weak. They pushed him around. They told him he was worthless. He stared at his food, too miserable to eat. Then a human girl sat down across from him. She was maybe 15 years old, with red hair and freckles. She set her tray next to his and started eating like this was the most normal thing in the world. A blinked at her. What are you doing? Eating lunch. What does it look like? But you are human. I am. We are not supposed to sit together. The girl rolled her eyes. Says who? Some bullies who think they are better than everyone else. She took a bite of her food. I heard a story recently about a human girl who stood up to the biggest bully at academy. She showed everyone that being strong is not about hurting people. It is about protecting them. A's eyes widened. The shadow story, I thought that was just a legend. It is not a legend, it really happened, and you know what I learned from it. She looked at him with kind, steady eyes. Standing up matters, even when you are scared, especially when you are scared. She held out her hand. I want to be friends. I looked at her hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out with one of his 4 arms and shook it. And yes, I think I would like that. They ate together. Other students stared, but neither of them cared. It was a small thing. One human girl sitting with one lonely boy. But small things have a way of growing. And across the galaxy, in a training facility for the Interstellar Diplomatic Corps, Myra looked up from her studies and felt something strange in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize it. Hope. For the first time in years, she felt hope. Not just for herself, but for everyone. For the young ones who were learning to be brave. For the bullies who were learning to be kind. For the galaxy that was slowly, painfully, beautifully learning that strength means more than violence. She smiled and went back to her studies. The shadows would always be part of her, but now she walked in the light as well. And that made all the difference. The galaxy had learned many things about humanity since first contact. Their strange endurance, their contradictory nature, their impossible ability to hope even in the darkest times. But the most important lesson was simple. Humans protect their own, not with conquest or domination, but with a fierce and quiet love that burns long after the arena lights go dark. Sometimes that is enough to change everything. Sometimes one small girl standing up can light a fire that spreads across the stars. And sometimes shadows become something beautiful when they finally step into the sun.